I'm Sergeant Major Woods, your host for this issue of The Big Picture. While the U.S. Army has many missions in many lands, the attention of our nation is focused inevitably on Army activities in one particular part of the world, Vietnam. During the past decade, the United States Army has been assigned increasing responsibilities here in pursuit of our government's commitment to the government of Free South Vietnam. On your Army reports today, we will show you some of the combat operations involving U.S. troops in Vietnam and present some close-ups of Army support activities in Saigon that are helping in the war effort. Our first story, a combat mission by the 1st Air Cavalry Division, code name Operation Washington Irving.
In the coastal highlands of South Vietnam, men of the U.S. Army 1st Air Cavalry Division move through the jungle in search of enemy forces. The monsoon season has come, and Operation Washington Irving is in full swing. Already, many Viet Cong prisoners have been taken. Now the search is on for 2 battalions of North Vietnamese regulars who are reported to be massing for an attack on one of our airstrips. Except for isolated sniper fire, no contact has been made yet. Only one village has been discovered along the way. Intelligence reports have identified this entire area as a possible Viet Cong stronghold, and the troops are on the alert for trouble. In a Vietnamese village, trouble has many hiding places, but so far, the only male discovered is a boy. He is questioned intensively by an interpreter who translates the boy's answers for the company commander. The women are also interrogated. VC often flee before the searching U.S. troops and return as soon as they think it is safe. Throughout the operation, contact is maintained with the command post, as hostile forces may have been spotted in the vicinity. At least for the present, the jungle around the troopers is quiet. They grasp the opportunity for a much-needed coffee break. The sound and sight of an approaching helicopter raises their spirits. With any luck, it may be bringing food, cigarettes, maybe even some dry clothing. The helicopter has brought food, mail, cigarettes, and other assorted items. And enough dry socks to go around. Out here, even that GI coffee tastes good. The Vietnamese jungle isn't famous for its creature comforts, but the men do the best they can. A clear afternoon before the monsoon rains start up again provides an opportunity for drying things out. Time for hot chow, also brought in for the men by helicopter. In the quickly shifting jungle war, Army field kitchen facilities follow the troops wherever possible. The order comes to move out. Ahead, the troopers will meet up with the enemy. When the battle is over, the troopers will count 270 enemy dead, 60 captured, and 200 prisoners suspected of collaborating with the Viet Cong.
An important Army activity is to aid Vietnamese troops in their fight against the Viet Cong. In the southern Delta country, members of the 21st Infantry Division, Army of the Republic of Vietnam, move in force against VC positions. The U.S. Army Aviation Battalion provides air support for Operation Dan Chi.
The Delta country of South Vietnam is the scene of an intensive campaign by Vietnamese Ranger troops against Viet Cong forces in the area. Helicopters of the U.S. Army 13th Aviation Battalion provide direct air support, transporting the men to their destination in Operation Dan Chi. En route, the battle zone is carefully observed, and enemy positions below are fired upon by our gunners. The Rangers are landed in a rice field near the forest, where the VC have strong concentrations of men and arms. They close in on their objective in two converging forces. In a day-long battle, the Rangers exact a heavy toll. Armed U.S. helicopters which block escape routes add to enemy casualties. After the battle, the South Vietnamese troops are flown back to their camp, and results of the conflict are evaluated. The attack has broken up several established enemy training and staging areas. The Rangers have taken many prisoners, including 55 members of an elite Viet Cong guerrilla force. In addition to prisoners taken in battle, many Viet Cong defect to government troops. As a result of continuous pressure by South Vietnamese soldiers and U.S. forces, the number of defecting VC is steadily increasing. Women, too, are among the defectors. U.S. advisors look on as the VC line up for questioning. A careful watch is kept over the prisoners as these troops of the Republic of Vietnam bring their campaign to a successful conclusion. 1 week later, at headquarters of the 13th Aviation Battalion, Commander of U.S. Forces in South Vietnam, General William C. Westmoreland, comes to present an award to the unit for its remarkable role in supporting the Vietnamese Rangers in the Delta campaign. General Westmoreland and the battalion commander troop the line. Already the most decorated American aviation battalion in Vietnam, the 13th receives a new streamer for the battalion flag. A citation is awarded for extraordinary heroism and professional skill in support of Operation Don Chief. The unit commander received the document on behalf of the battalion. Following the presentation, the men of the 13th hear a personal commendation from General Westmoreland. Reward for victory in the Delta, a military success achieved through the cooperation of South Vietnamese forces and U.S. Army aviation support. Other U.S. Army aviation units in South Vietnam fly many different types of missions that contribute to our success in combat. At this Army airstrip about 55 miles northwest of Saigon, a shipment of radio communications equipment is loaded aboard a helicopter for an unusual delivery. The shipment is bound for New Ba Den, the Black Virgin Mountain, site of a Special Forces radio relay station 3,200 feet above sea level. The summit where the American outpost is located is the highest point in the area, but visibility is often poor. Despite low-hanging clouds, helicopters are able to land to deliver the badly needed equipment. Except for our camp, the mountain is controlled by the Viet Cong, and all supplies and personnel must be brought in by airlift. Living here are approximately 100 Cambodians, including soldiers and their dependents. The soldiers provide a security force for the site under the direction of the U.S. Special Forces team. With the completion of the supply operation, the radio relay station is equipped to continue its important military communications assignment. Another key Army aviation activity in Vietnam is retrieving Army aircraft damaged or wrecked in military operations. A recovery team has been dispatched to the scene of this crash of a large cargo-carrying helicopter, a Chinook. All wreckage is to be returned to a maintenance area. Members of the recovery crew have removed the heavier parts to lighten the downed craft for airlift. The parts are loaded aboard another Chinook. Components too large for loading are lifted from the wreckage and carried below the recovery aircraft by a heavy cargo sling suspended from a hydraulically operated hoist. Now the flying crane is brought in for the difficult job of airlifting the large fuselage of the wrecked helicopter. The heavy-duty flying crane, which can lift loads up to 10 tons, can retrieve any rotary or fixed-wing Army aircraft of any shape and size and fly it swiftly to repair facilities. Salvaging of costly equipment in operations like this one is a procedure that aids the Army's economy program. After the load has been safely secured in its sling, a drag parachute is released to stabilize the ponderous cargo in flight. The journey back over the mountains gets underway. The airlift nears its destination, an Army Aircraft Field Maintenance Center equipped to handle the repair assignment. Now the wrecked helicopter is eased down. Soon, maintenance experts will take over and begin the work of restoring it so that it may be returned to duty with as little delay as possible. The many capabilities of the helicopter and other aircraft in military operations have helped to emphasize the role of Army aviation as an effective means of combat support.
Wherever soldiers do battle, provision must be made for tending the wounded. In Vietnam, the Army nurse serves the combat soldier on many fronts, from the swamps and rice paddies of the Delta to the jungle regions of the Central Highlands. While Army nurses seldom make the headlines, they are all VIPs, very important persons, to the men who are in need of their help.
The general buildup of American forces in Vietnam has called for a considerable increase in hospital personnel. By helicopter and ambulance, the wounded are delivered to the hospitals where Army nurses and doctors are ready and waiting to administer medical aid. Both male and female nurses assist in recovery procedures. If necessary, patients receive immediate treatment in the emergency receiving room. When surgery is required, nurses serving as part of a medical team prepare the patient and assist in operating procedures. In the recovery room or in the ward, nursing duties range from routine bed care of the patient to medical treatment requiring specialized skills. During off-duty hours, many of the nurses are engaged in providing medical care in civic action programs. Another off-duty project is the buildup of this orphanage near Saigon. Here, nurses and doctors alike devote spare time to organizing various activities. Recently, they have helped repair and repaint the children's living quarters and provided medication and clothing. The staff of the orphanage stages an impromptu entertainment for the nurses and doctors. The children show their appreciation with a dance pantomime entitled The Funeral of a Mouse. The activities of Army nurses in Vietnam are extensive and varied. This highly trained chief nurse at the 3rd Field Hospital is also a bit of an architect. Here she looks over blueprints for a new intensive care ward, which she helped design and which is now under construction. After long and arduous on-duty hours comes an opportunity to see a little of the town. Window shopping is the same anywhere in the world, and despite the war, Saigon displays its share of modes and fashions. The sights and sounds of the colorful city provide a novel and interesting experience. The architecture of many of the buildings reflects Vietnam's long association with Western culture. Next stop, the rooftop terrace of the U.S. Army Officers Club, which offers an exciting view of the city. Pictures are taken for the folks back home as the girls who've had a busy day prepare to wind up their afternoon's excursion. Some of the girls may spend their afternoon at the Post Exchange Beauty Parlor, where Milady the nurse goes for the works. At the hospital lounge, a good way to relax is to get together over a game of cards. After the game, of course, there'll be a chance to catch up on the latest gossip. And what's an evening without at least one long session on the telephone? There are always letters to be written to friends and relatives back in the States. For the girl who likes to curl up with a good book, there are plenty available from the nearest Special Services Center. Even the U.S. Army goes along with romance, as this Army nurse has given time out for wedding bells. Before a group of well-wishing friends, the marriage takes place in the 3rd Field Hospital Chapel. The hospital chaplain performs the ceremony. Both bride and groom are assigned to the hospital staff, which makes it an all-Army affair, with all the trimmings. Next day, it's business as usual, as nurses accompany patients to a medical evacuation airlift. The men are put into ambulances for the trip to Tan Son Nhut Air Base outside Saigon, or the journey back to the United States. The nurse rides with her patients in case she should be needed on the way. At the airfield, she helps supervise the loading of the patients onto the aircraft. Patients and medical records are turned over to an Air Force flight nurse who will accompany the wounded men on their trip home. In a demanding and often dangerous assignment, these women serve in the finest traditions of our armed forces.
Vietnamese women play an important role in the battle for a free South Vietnam. The Vietnamese Women's Army Corps conducts a continuous training program under the guidance and supervision of U.S. Army WAC officers. WAC Colonel Judith Bennett tells the story in an interview in Saigon.
This is Army Specialist Mike Baker reporting for the MACV Office of Information from the Women's Armed Forces Corps near Saigon, Vietnam. With me today is Lieutenant Colonel Judith Bennett, Senior Advisor, Women's Army Corps. Colonel Bennett, the Women's Armed Forces Corps of the Republic of Vietnam is organized in a similar manner, yet different than the Women's Army Corps of the United States. In actuality, how different are the two corps?
Well, in the first place, I should point out that there are many similarities. Outstanding among these are that they are all volunteers and they all perform administrative type duties as opposed to combat type duties. The original mission was to release men to be assigned to combat or combat support duties. We have both basic training and officer training in country now. Both activities have been established since the new Corps was formed the 1st of January 1965.
Tay, hai tay dang ra, ngửa lòng bàn tay lên trời. 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, đứng lại. Đứng. Ơi, từng quan chi khi nó mưa nhọc nhằn bao năm. Một ơi, xe không phải cái xưa ta tiếng nào ta thiếu lên cho bao nào. Chúng ta đi cho con ngày đi. Một ơi.
In the past, we've had some difficulty in finding enough officers in the WAFC who had the English proficiency which was necessary for the school in the States. We do not anticipate that problem in the future since we do have a number of hours in English in our officer candidate class.
My name is Irene Mason.
My name is Irene Mason.
Oh, yes, I know you.
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 Who is that over there?
Who is that over there?
The welfare workers are a rather unique area that the WAFSs work in. These women work with the dependents of the soldiers. The Vietnamese allow their dependents to go down to regimental level. And while the soldiers are out on operations, these WAFSs see that the dependents are taken care of. My first major project in Vietnam was to establish an in-country officer candidate school.
Chắc chắn là không. Thành ra cái yếu tố mà học viên đó cũng rất là quan trọng.
When they successfully complete the course, they are commissioned as aspirants, which, although we don't have a comparable rank, we might think of it as a third lieutenant. Their next promotion would be to second lieutenant.
Well, thank you very much, Colonel Bennett.
During the night of 7 October 1966, an artillery battery of the 173rd Airborne Brigade moved from its base camp to a defensive position near Da Nang, replacing a Marine unit which had been ordered to another area. This on-the-spot film record of Battery B is a vivid documentary of the sights and sounds of an artillery fire mission.
This is a U.S. artillery compound near the coastal city of Da Nang. The Marine unit leaves the area en route to the north, where it will support other Marine units fighting near the demilitarized zone. The Army artillery battery moves in, positioning its howitzers. The men and their guns were flown in from their base the preceding day and made the last leg of the journey by convoy. The job of readying the big guns for their mission begins immediately. Artillery components are quickly assembled by battery experts. The area is closed off with sandbags for protection of personnel and ammunition. Guns are adjusted to permit a final check before firing. In the tropical climate of Vietnam, maintenance of weapons and military equipment is a difficult and exacting duty. Each man in the battery has been thoroughly trained in maintenance procedures and must be sure that the gun is ready for action. Behind sandbag emplacements, the Fire Direction Control Center for the battery has been set up. Now, a call is received from a forward artillery observer giving information for the fire mission. Grid coordinates are recorded, along with other information given by the observer. Using all available data, shell deflection and quadrants are computed on the fire control plotting board. Accuracy of the fire mission is essential to clear the zones surrounding the base, thus denying the enemy areas where he can concentrate forces for an attack. Once the firing data has been computed, the gun section is notified. The gun crews move to their weapons. Howitzer shells are prepared for firing. Sighting adjustments are made. The fire order is given. Reports are received that all enemy objectives have been hit. The fire mission is successful. It's all in a day's work for the men of Battery B, whose motto is, shells on target.
The United States Army in Vietnam is many people doing many things. Whether it be direct combat against the aggressor, tactical support for Vietnamese military operations, nursing care for the wounded, guidance for the participation of women in the war effort, or morale-building activities, the goal is constant. The purpose determined that the people of South Vietnam shall remain free to decide their own destiny. This is Sergeant Major Woods bringing to a close this issue of your Army Reports.
I'm Sergeant Major Stan Bishop, your host for this issue of The Big Picture. Army aircraft plays an essential role on today's battlefield in close support of our fighting men. But aircraft is, of course, vulnerable to enemy ground fire. To learn about the risk involved when helicopters fly combat missions, the U.S. Army Combat Development Command is testing aircraft survivability under simulated battlefield conditions. This and other stories on today's program of Your Army Report.
When Army aircraft fly combat missions, what are their chances of survival? Does terrain, altitude, speed, or tactics affect their survivability? To answer these questions, Army aircraft were subjected to combat conditions on this simulated battlefield at Hunter Liggett Military Reservation in California. Here, the U.S. Army Combat Development Command conducted the Army aircraft survivability experiment. Data was recorded by a measurement system, one unit of which was mounted in the aircraft and included a tape recorder, while portable units were located with troop positions on the ground. By pressing buttons, the ground troops and air crews could automatically record when events took place. A combat action trial began with the aircrew briefing. The flight leader specified the flight path, altitude, and speed, and informed the crews that they will encounter enemy resistance somewhere along the way. A number of Army aircraft took part in the testing. The CH-47 Chinook flew troop lift and supply missions. The Mohawk flew infrared and photo reconnaissance. And the Iroquois performed escort and troop lift support missions. The aircraft flew from below treetop level to higher altitudes. In camouflaged ground positions, the simulated enemy troops were on red alert. They were not told when the trials began. The interaction between the aircraft and the ground troops was automatically recorded on tape for later study. towed and drone targets represented Army aircraft for the next phase using live gunfire. The Chinook picked up and towed targets in a course in front of 5 gun positions. As the target approached each position, it was fired upon. The gun muzzle blast was sensed by a microphone and recorded. The missed distance impulses were also recorded for later analysis. Upon recovery of the target, the number and location of hits were noted. A courier delivered the information gathered in the field test to the computer laboratory. Electronically, the hits and misses around the target were recorded to provide information about survival probabilities for Army aircraft in a wide range of combat situations. The valuable results of these tests give military planners a yardstick for measuring the hazards involved in combat missions.
At Fort Gulick in the Panama Canal Zone, Army Special Forces instructors are conducting a distinctive type of parachute training known as HALO, meaning high altitude, low opening. The jumpers are being trained to descend upon the enemy from an altitude high enough to avoid detection either by radar or the human eye or ear.
The class of highly qualified parachutists has been hand-picked for the special HALO training. The new type jumpsuits equipped with oxygen supply and altimeter are explained to the students. They also learn methods of parachute rigging for the new chute design. Throughout the 5-week intensive training course, proper exit from the aircraft and landing position is stressed. From the top of an ordinary table, trainees are taught the special body position required because of the equipment load. Proper control of the parachute enables them to regulate the rate of descent and direction of drift. This is not a swimming party. It is more of the exacting training, the subject of body control and maneuver during free fall. The density of the water simulates the effect of a solid mass of moving air when parachuting. With the jumping fundamentals thoroughly understood, the students make dizzying leaps from the practice tower. The fall is broken by a safety rig attached to the trainee. Instructors make notes on the student's performance and indicate improvement. This mock-up of an aircraft doorway stresses proper exit and body control. During actual jumps at 4,000 feet, the students exhibit good form as they drop from the aircraft. They free fall for 5 seconds before their chutes open. Other jumpers follow, exercising control of their body and parachute as they move toward the drop zone. On the ground at the drop zone, instructors study the descent techniques of the students. They observe if each man is getting maximum results from his special purpose parachute. Finally, the jumpers land in prescribed form. High-altitude jumps are conducted in the rarefied atmosphere at 14,000 feet. Here, these qualified paratroopers use the specially designed halo equipment, wearing up to 80 pounds per man of combat gear. Should the jumper fail to open his main chute, an altimeter with an automatic timing device opens the reserve chute at 4,000 feet. These special warfare paratroopers utilize maximum free fall to avoid detection by the enemy. For landing accuracy, body control in the free fall is vital.
Our soldiers in South Vietnam are there to help the people maintain their independence by carrying the action to the enemy. The search and destroy tactic developed by our forces in Vietnam means just what it says. To search out the enemy, no matter how difficult the terrain, to engage him in battle, and in the end, to destroy him.
The fertile plain of the Mekong River Delta is the scene of intensive search and destroy operations by Allied forces. The heavy annual rainfall in the Delta makes it one of the world's great rice-growing areas, and therefore an area which must be kept from enemy control. The broad plain looks peaceful, but the Viet Cong use this deceptively serene appearance to their advantage with the help of camouflage. Operation Kickoff, a typical search and destroy mission mounted by the 173rd Airborne Brigade and attached units, is directed against an enemy concentration some 35 miles southwest of Saigon. Beginning last year, Allied forces have mounted continual search and destroy operations in order to find the Viet Cong, no matter how well hidden in the local terrain, and meet him in combat on his own terms. This flat, open country provides a haven for the enemy, enabling him to remain undetected for long periods until ready to strike. As the Allied force pushes forward, one unit engages a hardcore, well-dug-in Viet Cong battalion. A call is made for artillery and air support. The resulting bombardment softens up the Viet Cong position, as American wounded are rushed from the front lines by helicopters to field dispensaries in the rear. The rapid evacuation of casualties in the face of enemy fire is made possible by smooth cooperation between medical and combat units. Then the troops move ahead, through the rice paddies, often in knee-deep water and mud, in order to avoid possible enemy ambush along the hard-ground paths of the dikes. Security groups cover the flanks as the men advance cautiously, always on the alert for the slightly built Viet Cong, who can easily hide in the surrounding grass. Farmhouses near the area are searched, and the identification papers of all males inspected. The local people are questioned by unit leaders. A thorough search of this particular farmhouse yields a variety of weapons and equipment, and a denial of ownership. Further questioning reveals that the small boats found nearby were used by the Viet Cong for transport on the adjoining waterway. Also discovered are two live U.S. 106 millimeter shells adapted for use as mines. A demolition expert prepares to dispose of the high explosive rounds. Women and children are taken to safety, and all the troops stand clear as the shells are exploded. Suspected VC are rounded up. The enemy's familiarity with the local countryside and his closeness to the soil works in his favor in both maneuver and in the ability to quickly assume a false identity, such as that of a farmer. Because of the evidence found, these suspects will be transferred to a central point for further interrogation. They are bound and blindfolded pending their transport to headquarters intelligence. Men of the 173rd Airborne Brigade making the arrest supply the reason for suspicion, the place of capture, and any other pertinent data. The information gained from the interrogation of these enemy suspects is of invaluable worth in knowing where to look for Viet Cong during the next search and destroy mission, thereby saving American lives on some future battlefield. The Central Highlands, the plateau area of Vietnam, varies in elevation from 600 to 1,600 feet, with a few peaks rising much higher. The area is covered with bamboo and tropical forests, interspersed with farms. In the jungle, a unit on foot usually moves at a very slow rate, while the rolling open area is suitable for the rapid movement of armored warfare. However, both types of terrain must be denied the enemy. An estimated 600,000 Montagnards live in the central highlands in Vietnam. They are a primitive tribal people living in relative isolation from the rest of the country. They speak their own language and maintain their own cultural traditions and ways of life. The Montagnards view strangers with suspicion and distrust because they fear a threat to their ancestral land. United States Army Special Forces have succeeded in establishing friendly relationships with many of the tribesmen and enlisting their aid in the common fight against the communist intruders into the area. In the highlands between Pleiku and the Cambodian border, the combat-seasoned men of the 1st Cavalry Division, supported by Vietnamese strike troops, take part in a search and destroy mission called Matador. The division is coordinating reconnaissance by both ground and air units for maximal effectiveness. The division's recon helicopters make daily flights to locate the enemy, and their missions are paralleled by fast-moving armed jeeps operating on the ground to keep in constant touch with the choppers overhead. When Viet Cong presence is suspected, a ground observer radios division headquarters for the choppers to bring in the troops to attack an enemy position. While troops are loading, the pilots receive a last-minute briefing before takeoff. This new air and ground team concept has already proved valuable in the Vietnam fight, where the prompt delineation of a target area may spell the difference between success and failure. Areas screened from aerial observation by adverse terrain features, such as a jungle canopy, are covered by the highly mobile ground reconnaissance team. Working together day after day, the jeeps and copters continue their relentless pursuit of enemy forces. But very little direct contact is made with the always elusive Viet Cong. Well-armed soldiers establish perimeter defense positions around the possible helicopter landing area and also provide protective cover for local friendly farmers. A high degree of coordination between the air and ground units provides a continuous harassment of enemy forces in the area and keeps them off balance. Returning to their base of operations, the copter pilots land on the plateau of the Central Highlands. One of the first things the soldier thinks of upon coming back is mail from home. Perhaps there is even time for a quick reply. Between missions, men of the 1st Cavalry Division do a little preventive maintenance on their weapons. An effective item of ordnance issued to troops is the Springfield automatic grenade launcher, which fires 40-millimeter grenades. Then, as before, a new mission is assigned, and after refueling, the reconnaissance aircraft takes off for yet another of the continuous ground-air coordinated search and destroy thrusts directed at a well-hidden enemy. The so-called Iron Triangle to the north of Saigon, like so much of Vietnam, enjoys a warm climate and heavy rainfall, favoring the rapid growth of vegetation, most of which is rice cultivation, 2 crops a year. It is also the location of many rubber plantations. Members of the 101st Airborne Division are briefed at a command post outside the city of Ben Cot in the Iron Triangle area. Word has been received that Viet Cong forces are entrenched in one of the big rubber plantations to the west. The mission of the unit is to land by helicopter and sweep the plantation of any hostile forces. Air observation of such rubber plantations is difficult, so the Viet Cong use these areas as assembly points for men and supplies. However, by the time friendly informants point out enemy hiding places, the guerrillas have already fled. The plantations are found to be honeycombed with tunnels and dugouts, and are a prime target of our search and destroy missions. The maze of underground passageways are scoured, but only a few items, like this propaganda poster, are discovered. Patrols also search nearby fields and thick patches of woods, which sometimes yield frightened families hiding from the Viet Cong. They are escorted to a safe central collection point. The men continue to advance slowly, realizing there may be die-hard snipers still in the area. Later, sniper fire is encountered, and mortar rounds are directed at the guerrilla positions. The mortar barrage neutralizes the sniper fire, and contact with the VC is not established. While troops continue the search, other soldiers secure the roads and bridges in the area. Jeep crews load dairy cans with fresh water at a shallow river ford. The water will be boiled for purification and then cooled before use. The men of the 101st Airborne Division pause in the tropical heat to refresh themselves before continuing their search and destroy cycle. During a lull in the operation, the battalion chaplain arrives by jeep and conducts open-air services for the men of the unit. The combat soldier realizes the need for spiritual as well as physical strength today in the fields, jungles, and rice paddies of strife-torn Vietnam. But whatever the area, in a country of varied and difficult terrain, the search and destroy operation is one way to gain and maintain an advantage over a tenacious enemy.
We can be justly proud of our soldiers serving in Vietnam, who are continuing the magnificent tradition of the United States Army. Now, this is Sergeant Major Stan Bishop bringing to a close this issue of Your Army Report.